The story of Eastern State Penitentiary in Philadelphia is not just a ghost story. It is a chronicle of a failed social experiment that left behind a residue of madness. Opened in 1829, it was the first true penitentiary, designed to reform criminals through total isolation. While the entire prison is eerie, Cellblock 12 is widely considered the epicenter of its most violent and inexplicable paranormal activity. The architecture of silence. Eastern State was built on the Pennsylvania system. Every prisoner lived in complete solitude. They ate alone, exercised alone in individual walled yards, and when they were moved through the halls, they wore heavy hoods so they could never see another human face. The only light came from a single skylight in the ceiling of each cell, called the Eye of God, intended to make prisoners reflect on their sins. By the time Cellblock 12 was constructed in 1911, the prison was overcrowded and the isolation system had shifted toward a more traditional, brutal incarceration. Cellblock 12 was built as a 3-story block to house the most difficult and dangerous inmates. Unlike the earlier blocks, which were designed for reflection, Block 12 was designed for containment. The shadow in the corner. The legends of Cellblock 12 began long before the prison closed in 1971. Guards and inmates alike reported a heavy, suffocating atmosphere the moment they stepped into the block. In the 1940s, stories began to circulate about a shadow man, a silhouette darker than the surrounding gloom that would stand at the far end of the corridor. One story involves a locksmith named Gary Johnson, who was hired in the 1990s to help restore the locks in Cellblock 12. As he worked on an old cell door, he claimed he felt a sudden, bone-chilling cold. When he looked up, he saw a solid black mass emerge from the wall. He described it as a negative space that radiated an intense feeling of being watched and hated. He was so terrified that he dropped his tools and refused to return to that wing of the prison for years. The cackling of the unseen. Visitors to Cellblock 12 often report the same specific auditory phenomena, the sound of a distant, manic cackling. It isn't the sound of someone in pain, but rather the sound of someone who has completely lost their grip on reality. Paranormal investigators believe this may be a residual haunting, an echo of the many men who suffered mental breakdowns due to the extreme isolation. In Cellblock 12, people frequently report being touched, pushed, or hearing their own names whispered by a voice that seems to come from inside the walls. The Al Capone connection. While the legendary gangster Al Capone was housed in Cellblock 1, in a surprisingly luxurious cell, even he was not immune to the horrors of Eastern State. During his stay in 1929, he was heard screaming in his cell, begging Jimmy to leave him alone. Many believe Jimmy was James Clark, a victim of the St. Valentine's Day massacre. Though Capone wasn't in Block 12, his terror set the tone for the prison's reputation. If the most powerful mobster in America was reduced to a trembling mess by the spirits of the prison, what chance did the average inmate have in the darker, more cramped quarters of Cellblock 12? The modern experience. Today, Eastern State is a preserved ruin. Cellblock 12 remains one of the most physically decayed parts of the prison. The paint peels and long, skeletal strips from the vaulted ceilings, and the rusted iron bed frames still sit in the center of the tiny cells. During Terror Behind the Walls, the prison's famous Halloween event, actors frequently report that they are not the only ones moving in the shadows of Block 12. They describe seeing figures in old-fashioned prison grays walking into cells, only to vanish when the actor follows them to see who broke character. To this day, Cellblock 12 remains a place where the air feels thick, and the silence is never truly silent. It stands as a monument to a century of concentrated human misery, where the walls seem to have absorbed the screams of the forgotten.